listening to episode 52 of the Comm Cafe. This episode is called The Key to Happiness, and Ashley Ann Pereira stopped by the Comm Cafe to discuss her new book called The Key to Happiness. Ashley Ann is an award-winning speaker, coach, and, you guessed it, author. So sit back and enjoy my interview with Ashley Ann Pereira. It is Dwayne Richards, and this is yet another episode of the Comm Cafe, and this is where we hang out. This is a place for entrepreneurs, small business owners, just general good people, and we talk about mindset, personal development, professional development, and I have a special guest with me, and this fits right into my series of authors. So it is Ashley Ann Pereira, and she is an author, a coach, and award-winning speaker. The trifecta. She is doing it all. She's got the book out, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. She is the author of The Key to Happiness. Man, I think I found happiness, but I'm really looking forward to learning what is the key. And actually, I found out there's actually some steps to that one key. So, hey, welcome to the Comm Cafe, Ashley Ann, and thanks for stopping by.
Thank you for having me, Dwayne.
Well, we did a quick little reunion before we got on the air just to remind ourselves how 2 years ago we met, hanging out, listening to MMI and the principles of T. Harv Eker and how to work around our mindset. So I know you are definitely going to be able to help my guests today around mindset and happiness. It should
I hope
be
so.
easy, right? Happiness?
It should be, but I think we complicate it just a little bit.
All right. So why the book?
So the book came about, my idea for it was 2015. So I saw this quote on Facebook, and it read, "Tomorrow is the first chapter of a 365-page book. Write a good one." And I've always loved writing. Ever since I was little, it was my outlet. And I said, I'm going to write every single day for a year. And I'm just going to write about a lesson that I learned that day, what I was grateful for, whatever came, I would just write at the end of the day. And by the end of the book, I had realized that I had learned and gone through quite a few different things throughout my life that a lot of people would benefit from, especially people, my peers, my age. And it was my thing. Like I've always, even speaking, I always speak about my own personal stories, my own personal experiences. And I said, this is what's going to be my first book. And that's where the idea came from initially.
Okay. Now you said your first book, so then that must mean that there's a second book in you. So what's want to share a little secret? What's the second book going to be about?
Yeah, so I actually have this idea. Grief and loss is a big part of my story as well. I've lost many different people in my life from various different forms as well, like cancer, so illness, accidents, suicide. So I want to put together a book recognizing the heroes that we may not have heard about that have already passed. So that's the idea of the next book.
Nice. I like that.
Yeah.
All right. And now, so the book is called The Key of Happiness. So it is and we learned you just shared with us that it was a 1 year kind of documenting.
Mm-hmm.
How did you find let's talk a little bit about the writing experience, because I know lots of people are listening that may want to be authors or always say, hey, everyone says there's a book in you. So maybe share a little bit off the top. We'll talk the writing experience. So I know you said you're a writer, but maybe a quick tip or a little bit of structure. So if someone's thinking about writing a book like me, advice on how to pen and paper, computer,
Pen and paper.
Structure.
Yeah. So I'm definitely a pen and paper type girl. Any ideas that came to me that I didn't have a pen and paper, a lot of these ideas came on the subway for me. So I would write chapters on the subway just on my commute to work. And someone actually told me the other day that the reason that happens is because you have no distractions on commutes. So things just come to you. And I was like, that explains a lot. But I think for me, the process, I had different ideas come. It was interesting because I guess they came through the speaking initially when I was, okay, what would I share through, at this speaking event? And initially my idea of the title of the book was A Guide to Life. And I guess it really wasn't sticking. And then again, like one day on the subway, it came to me like the key to happiness and then the principles. So for me, it was a mind map. I'd had to just map everything out, map out like all the different experiences that I've had throughout my life, because I knew that was going to be the message, and then figure out how they tied into each other. And then almost, so in the book, it's just, it's not a flowing story. It's just its own individual chapter.
Okay.
And so it was grouping it. But mind maps always help me get my ideas out, write it all out.
All right, then I personally know what mind mapping is because I was at a mastermind and they actually brought in an expert to teach us how to do mind mapping. So I'm guessing that was like not that long ago. So I went 40 plus years without knowing what. So maybe to share, maybe if you don't mind, let's go down that rabbit hole a little bit and share a little bit. How does the mind mapping process work?
Yeah, so I think for me, the way I always do it is I literally just have like the one bubble in the middle, as weird as it sounds, and then I just start. You can do it any way. You could just make a list of different ideas that are come to you. But I guess I'm very visual, so I need the different circles so that I can make the arrows and connect them all and what goes here and what goes there. But I guess the simplest way is to just put all your ideas pen to paper so you can have it visually in front of you. I don't know if you have a better way of explaining that.
No, that's a good, and I say I've done it where it's also a version of as a mind dump. So really to put down all of the stuff that's clogging up, because sometimes we carry around ideas and we just don't have room for new ones, or we have this fear and we don't sleep well, we don't do other things well because we have this fear, or I'm going to forget this idea. So it's also a great exercise just to dump everything that's in your brain, taking up space.
Mm-hmm.
And then see then once it's written down, then go back to it. Like I actually use these cue cards, and then it's like I write it down. If it's still a good idea tomorrow, then let it grow. Yeah, nice.
Exactly.
So mind mapping, and what I'll do is for our listeners, they can go into the show notes, and what I'll do, I'll put a link to one of the mind map tools that I've seen, and they can look up a little bit more about mind mapping if they don't know. So thank you for sharing that. Mind mapping is a great tool for authors or people that want to write, get down ideas. All right. Now, which was interesting, you explained it to me. So the book is it's the key to happiness, but then there are 5 principles.
Yes.
That's good, because I thought when you told me them, I'm like, that's 5 keys, but you said there's 1 key, but it's 5 principles. So I like that. Now, we're not going to share all 5 because people need to buy the book, and then we'll tell them, hey, why don't we share that right now? So let's give where your website is. I'm guessing if they go to the website, they can order their book. Now, we're not done yet, but just, hey, let's give them your website now, and we'll give it to them later. But what's your website?
So it's www.ashleyandpereira.com.
All right. And again, I will put a link in the show notes. And so they can buy your book off of the website? Is it on Amazon or just off the website?
Just off the website.
All right. So then I will put a link for the website in the show notes, and just click on there and order. Now I was on your website, so you can buy one and you bundle them up too, to say 3 or 5 or 10 or buy a whole case.
Yeah.
All right. Now, I know it's like asking for a favorite child, but which one of the 5 principles do you want to, we'll just touch on one today. Which one do you want to touch on?
I think forgiveness is the most important. And for me, I'm very organized, chronological, and that was where I needed to start.
Okay. So is that the first one in the book?
It is. Yeah.
All right. Start at the beginning. So forgiveness. Now are there a personal story in the book around forgiveness?
Yeah. So there's actually 4 parts to it. But they're all their own individual stories. So I guess exactly different examples of when I was practicing forgiveness.
how you work through that.
Yeah. So the one big example that I do share in the book is in 2010, so 7 years ago, in November, I was actually in a car accident. So I was walking to my high school. I was literally just across the street, and as I was crossing, a car made a left-hand turn and hit me. And little did I know that was going to be the start of a very difficult year. But basically, that entire year, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I ended up getting home from the hospital. And interesting enough, coming from a family that is just all about love and, sharing and expressing, because we've lost many people, I expected my family to, pick up the phone and call to find out if I was okay, just to hear your voice type thing. And thankfully, there weren't any serious injuries from the accident. But I remember from that day being so angry with my family, especially my dad, because they were just sending me messages on Facebook and couldn't pick up the phone. And that really, it took a big toll on me. Even just the experience itself, I didn't understand why it was happening to me. And I had to go to physio 3 times a week for a year. And it was exhausting because I was in high school. And I remember how bitter I became. I turned into a totally different person, even towards my mom, who was taking me to all the physio appointments, taking me to all the appointments that I had to go to with like psychologists and lawyers and all this stuff. And I was just like, that loving little happy girl that I was gone. And I was just so bitter. So that was really one of the points that I needed to forgive everybody else. But interesting enough, I never told anybody how hurt I was. And so we carry such heavy weights, and we don't try and express ourselves, or we don't try and talk about it. And confrontation has always been something that I struggled with. So telling them how I felt was just so difficult for me. And it probably would have been a lot easier if I did that, rather than, being the bitter person for a year or 2 years. So it was, I think one of the things I learned from that experience is acknowledging how taking ownership for what had happened. So had I just voiced sooner rather than later that, I was really hurt that you couldn't pick up the phone, it probably would have been a different year. I wouldn't have held on to the heavy weight of bitterness and all this different stuff had I just expressed how I felt. So it's a lot of the times we do need to take ownership for some things that happen in our life, and realize, we all have choices, and I chose the bitter path. And so I think the biggest thing was just taking ownership.
Mm-hmm. And I'm guessing, I'll be honest, I haven't read the book yet. And this is where it's our choice to be happy, or our based on how we react to our reaction to events that happen to us, is how we then indicate our happiness. So it's all about being our reaction to an event is not whether we're happy or not. It's how, if we choose to be, our choice to be happy or not. And
exactly.
Reactions. All right. But the bigger piece there I want to expand on a little bit is around communication, because that's part of what we do in our business is, the importance of communication, both for other people, so that, hey, as much as we love Facebook, picking up the phone or like hopping in the car and meeting people in person is wonderful, because I think honestly we've made there's a big disconnect where we just don't meet like physical and feel the physical energy by meeting. So that's the first piece, is that a quick message on Facebook isn't necessarily the most appropriate or the most, it's a thought, but it's not really that thoughtful.
Exactly.
But I like the piece of that. Again, I've experienced what you have, where if our personality type that we are, we don't like confrontation. So me, or in your case, you voicing how it hurt you, it would have been much more productive.
Yeah.
But we don't, because we have this assumption that it's how the other person's going to react to that conversation.
Exactly. We're more afraid of what the other person's going to say or how they're going to react to what we're saying.
All right. So so let's get into since you are a coach, let's get into a little bit of coaching then. So how would you, what kind of advice or what kind of things then, as you are working with your clients, is this something that you're helping clients with? Is the communication, it's the becoming aware, I almost shared one of those other principles, but awareness, like being aware of when we're doing it. So then how do we bring out the communication if someone's not a strong communicator? Or so what kind of things or tools, or just how do you work with your clients?
Yeah, so that's definitely something that I am helping a lot of different people with. There is an awareness piece to it, because if we don't have that awareness, we're never going to face it, in a sense. But the biggest tool that I personally use, and I only like to talk about things or share tools that I've personally used because I know it's worked for me. So the biggest step, and one that I've always used, even after that situation, even with my dad, I actually wrote him a letter. And sometimes you can choose whether or not to give this letter to someone. It's totally up to you. You can just write it, let the emotions out, and rip it up or burn it, whatever suits you. But I find that there is power to giving that person that letter, because it'll start the conversation. For me, the confrontation is something I always struggled with. So writing it down was my way of putting my thoughts together, and trying to come from a place of still love and not hate. So I wrote the letter to my dad, and we were able to start a conversation from there. So, you can write a letter to yourself, you can write a letter to somebody else, and you can give it to them. And it's not about, try not to expect the response, because it may not happen. I've written letters or not expecting a response, and I haven't gotten that response, and that's okay. It's just a matter of you're letting it out. And that's the biggest thing, is we hold so many different emotions, and it weighs on us, and it'll weigh on us. We'll get physically sick. That was something for me. I would get sore throats from me not speaking. Like when something was on my mind, something that I wanted to say to someone, I would get sore throats. And that was just a testament. So we physically make ourselves sick from holding all these negative emotions. They weigh so much. So let it out via, writing was my outlet. So writing is maybe not everybody's outlet, but it's definitely a tool that I find helpful.
Yeah, and I think and wonderful. That's amazing. It's a great tip. And we joke, jokingly aside, a letter is something, it's written on paper. You take a pen, you write it out. Yeah. That's what a letter is. It's not a text message. It's not necessarily even an email. It's something that actually is handed. So then then it actually gets delivered. Because it's text or something, you never know if they actually read it. Wonderful. Now, and in case people don't know, this is something I've learned more about in the last year, is the different our chakras, or our chakras, and the throat chakra is and it's really interesting that the throat, or where we speak from, and the fact that got sore, it is a sign that there's something in us that we need to speak.
Exactly.
Wonderful that you're wearing blue, because blue is actually the color of the throat chakra. So you're wearing.
Is it really?
Yes, yeah. So in case you didn't know, hey, it's a really quick. It's a little side. Are you okay with a little side story? So I was a previous episode. Actually, we did it as a Facebook Live. I did an episode with a colleague, someone who knows in Ireland, and she was talking about speaking, and she was actually wearing a blue scarf around her throat.
Wow.
And she had told a story about how she wore this scarf the day before, because she had this, it was really her first public speaking, and it went really well because she wore the blue scarf and it really, we talked about adding colors to, it was supporting, so subconsciously and consciously, add blue in the throat area as a tool to strengthen that, your speaking ability.
I didn't know that. I did learn about the chakras afterwards, and I was like, that makes sense.
It does.
But I
So,
didn't know about the blue.
yeah, and I'll put a little note in the show notes today if people want to. I'm working with someone around a program that's related to colors. So I'll put a little note, a little sidebar in the notes today if people want to learn a little bit more about what the 7 chakras are and the different colors.
Mm-hmm.
Fun. All right. Who is because we talked about this before we hit the record button. So who is it that you want? Because as an example, I'll share what we talked. Originally you were doing a lot of speaking, and you thought, okay, it's going to be like high school students and younger people. That's who you're going to your target audience for coaching and speaking. And then you came to a realization. So what's kind of the direction you're going now?
Yeah, so it's definitely my peers. So people who are in and around my age, college, university level, even older. Like I find that I've only once ever spoken at a high school, and other than that, it's always been in front of an older crowd. So that's my focus, is my peers.
All right, and I'll do a little qualifying because we did this little qualifier before we hit the record button. So it's not about age, but we'll just qualify. So you mentioned that you at 24 years old, and I don't know if I've admitted this on air yet, but I'm in my 45th year, so almost twice your age. So, and I've heard you, or I don't think I've heard you speak at the event, but I know the events that you speak at. And you're right that the content of what you speak on and the topic of your book, and even your book, is very relevant even into the audience of the events and the audience that I attend, because it's ageless, really. It's like happiness. Like, who doesn't want to be happy? And in some cases, older people, I'm not old, but I'm older, sometimes we have forgotten about happiness because we spent so long in our corporate jobs that we forgot what happiness is, where like sometimes like young people or high school students are pretty happy, so they may not need as much help as older people.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because I didn't think I was going to face, when I put my book out, I didn't think that I was going to come across the barrier, or it didn't come to me the barrier of, people wouldn't want to read my book because I'm 24. And I've gotten that, and it's interesting, but it's okay. Because that's just, it is what it is.
But again, if we didn't tell, it's not about the age, it's just it's what the content is. So I know on your book, when I look at the book cover, there's nothing that, unless I go and Google, like look it up to say who you are, it's not really relevant. And there's lots of great stories or other previous examples of some really younger people that have amazing, and I'm sure yours will fit in there too, that have amazing things to share with people that are like, darn, like that really, like one little thing, like tip 1, like forgiveness, change someone's, the second half of their life, let alone the remaining 2/3 of their life. So
yeah,
wonderful. All right, let's share the website one more time.
Yeah, so it's www.ashleyannpereira.com.
All right, and I know you want to get into speaking. So if someone's listening or looking for a speaker, what's kind of the topics, or what's your keynote speech? What kind of things do you speak on?
I guess it falls under the inspiration part, but I do talk about my own journey with self-confidence. I like to share my story of forgiveness and definitely gratitude on taking action. Those are 2 big ones that I really talk about, is the self-confidence and taking action, because time is always running out and we have to take action now.
Wonderful. And sometimes it's like, and so thank you for sharing that, because it's like, sometimes we say, hey, I want more speaking opportunities. And it's like, well, what do you speak on? It's like, I'll speak on anything. I'm like, no, like speak on gratitude, on forgiveness, on, and not to say, oh, I'm just another motivational speaker. I know we all need motivating, but sometimes we need the inspiration, but we also need to hear around specific things like gratitude and forgiveness. So
exactly.
And speaking from the heart, I'm sure you do. And speaking on personal stories, everyone likes the story that then anchors the point.
Yeah, and it's all about, I find, owning your story. Because if I wasn't able to own my story and own every little piece of, obstacles that I faced, I wouldn't be the woman that I am today. So it's owning our story is a big piece that we forget as well.
Wonderful. All right, I'm gonna put you on the spot. I said I wouldn't do this, but I'm gonna put you on the spot. I think you have it. What's one of the big goal, or the big goal, or one of the big goals for 2018? Because if you put it out to the world, you never know who's listening and who can actually get you one step closer to that goal for 2018. So what's on the 2018 plan?
So I've been working very hard on 2018 already. So I'm very, very excited about 2018, especially focusing on my own personal brand. But it's my own seminar. That's the big thing that I'm working on. So I'm developing my own program right now.
Nice. All right. And because then, hey, why not just put it out there?
Yeah.
What's one thing that you need? Sometimes I don't need anything, but what's one thing that you'd need that if someone sent you an email tomorrow and they said, I can help you with this, what's one thing that you'd say yes to?
I would say marketing is the first thing that comes to my head.
All right. Hey, this is cool. It's like be well aware, because there's lots of people like me that just say, hey, what do you need help with? And you're like,
I don't know.
Sure. But marketing, and again, it's not just we think, oh, everyone knows social media, social media.
Mm-hmm.
Not necessarily, it's actually having a marketing plan, and talk about later about how you could have a podcast as a portion of your marketing. But that's
exactly
a little seed. And all right, I want to thank you so much for coming on the Comm Cafe today. It was great catching up with you. I know this isn't the last time I'll see you, and I'll keep my eye out for that seminar in 2018, because I love to come in and support strong local speakers.
Awesome.
So just let me know when you're speaking, and we'll have you on. And we talked about this. We won't necessarily have you on the podcast, but we'll have you back on the Facebook Live to talk about when that seminar is going in 2018.
Awesome.
All right. Thank you, people, for listening. If you like what you heard, remember, just check the show notes. There's links to where you can get in contact with Ashley Ann. If not, just find her on Facebook. That's where I found her. And hey, if you like the episode, remember, hop over to iTunes, like and subscribe, leave us a comment, and best yet, share this with someone who you think would be inspired by the message you heard today on Comm Cafe.